Hello, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the R1 from Oxbot, our first remote control, and kind of the star of the show is this 2-inch touchscreen. It's pretty responsive, nice, crystal clear. It's also color. This radio comes in two versions. This is the Pro version, which has CNC all metal gimbals. Both have the screen that we've mentioned. The Pro version comes in at $127 ish, and the standard version, which does not have the CNC gimbals, as well as a few little accessories, comes in at $97. So I'll put a link to Oxbot's R1 product page, and you can check out the full specs, everything it comes with. The Pro version also comes with batteries that you need, which are 18650 cells. Jumping right into my stick cam. It's got some pretty good call outs. That's something else that you'll get in the stick cam. I don't think the audio quite does it justice, but yeah, I thought the speaker's pretty good.
What am I doing?
Yeah, come on, dude. Do you know how long it took me to do this stick cam? Just take a guess. Put it down in the comment section how many batteries I had to fly when I finally remembered I needed to record a stick cam. How many times out it took me. Where I got the sticks actually in the camera view and it had a usable flight, whatnot. How many? Okay, 1, 2, 3. You got your bets in on the comment section on how many? 11. This is the 11th flight I took with the chest cam mounted and everything. I stink at this stuff. Boy, I guess that's why a good thing that my kids don't depend on me making a living off of YouTube, because we would probably be a lot thinner and living in a much different house, and they would have full-time jobs rather than part-time jobs. But back to the R1, I was pretty impressed overall with it. It is oftentimes these sorts of GamePad style radios are oftentimes seen as for thumbers only. I don't agree with that. I use the Radio Master Zorro on a regular basis, and a lot of people think of it as a thumber. I am what you see in front of you, whether it's a pinching or a hybrid pinching, what have you. That's my style that I use for flight. I did find the sticks a little short, and they do raise up, and they mention it on their webpage that they go from, I think it's 18 millimeters to 25 millimeters. And I'll show you this when we get back to the desk, but they don't really have a locking mechanism to raise them up on the threads. So you would have to put like a nut underneath the stick end on the threaded part of the stick itself in order to raise them up. I did use a short nylon standoff, but that was too much for me. I also just kind of tried to leave it loose and just pinch and hold the ends, but that didn't work out very well. At any rate, so the CNC gimbals, I would say they're comparative to all the other CNC gimbals that we have on the market. Not that there's that many. You know, pretty much Radio Master is the one that I'm thinking of when I talk about CNC gimbals, but there are other manufacturers out there. I just don't have experience with them. This is running their own operating system. That is something to definitely be aware of. It's not running OpenTX or EdgeTX, so it's not running one of those projects. It's running themselves. They have had two versions of it already out, version 1, of course, and then version 1.1. It does have the capability of updating over Bluetooth. It also supports the SpeedyBee app, so you can use that in your tuning potentially needs. We're going to come in here for the landing, and I want to be quiet here.
Voltage is extremely low.
Hopefully you can hear that last bit. I thought it was funny because, you know, voltage extremely low, and it was like, what, 3.44 average cell volts? Not extremely low, you know, but I'm sure you could change that and test that out at different voltage levels to, you know, suit your particular needs. But that does bring a point that this, probably from a speaker standpoint, is one of the best speakers I've heard in a radio. And maybe it's just the audio files they're using are just higher quality. I can't say for sure, but it just sounds better than the other speakers in radios that I've used. Let's first go around the outside. So we have our trims. They're kind of the joysticks. This is a momentary button right here. This one does stick at the bottom, so it's technically a 2 position. Then we've got 2 position here on the ends, and then we've got 3 position up here. So it's got a kind of a mix. This is for heat ventilation. We've got our USB-C for simming as well as charging. For charging, the screen does come on, and it gives you a charging indicator. You have red when it's pretty low, and then it goes to kind of an amber or yellow as you get kind of in the mid-range as far as your battery voltage. And then when you get into the green, it's good to go. So it's very easy to make all that stuff out. We do have a bay here in the back that we can use, if I can get this off real quick. So you could insert a nano bay back here. Of course, the green light inside is showing through the translucent plastic. We also have a red light showing through. The speaker is right down here. You kind of see that wave form there. That's the indicator for the speaker. The stick ends do slip down into these holders. And do note that the holder holes, they open up down there in the radio. So if you have this out in the field and you have your sticks out and you're putting it down in the dirt and stuff, that dirt can get down in there. I would suggest at the very least, take a piece of cotton or something to block that hole. If you're someone who takes this out to the field and you have a tendency to set it out in dirt or sand, you don't want that stuff getting inside. I think that's one miss that I would suggest to them is when they plastic mold these things, that needs to be covered. That should not allow dirt inside the radio. Of course, the 18650s sit inside here. I did loosen my gimbals by removing these and using my hex driver in order to turn a few screws and make the sticks a little bit looser, because I do like the loose sticks. So the interface is obviously, well, depending upon your point of view, I think it's attractive, and you can change some things on here. So if we go in this and we edit, you can see where we have these 4 different elements, and you can tap them and you can change the sticks to one of the colors. You can put the channel map in there. You can use one of the timers in the different colors. I don't believe there is a way for us to make these little widgets or modules that go in these different blocks, but I did want to show you that you do have the opportunity to change them on your own. So you can go into different little widgets, altitude, channel mixer. Those are the only 3 for the big one. And then when you go into the other smaller square ones, they're all the same. And you have those as your options. But I thought the interface was interesting, and I do like the animations that they use. You saw that at the beginning of the stick cam when I armed, and then, well, nothing's connected at this point, so it won't do it. But the timer here in the middle did start, and it did kind of make itself bigger. You can go back and look at that in the stick cam. Of course, I wasn't flying anything with GPS, and then we had the voltage that would also show on here, and then you have all your telemetry sensors down here as well. You can use the back button in order to get back if you're having a hard time registering with your fingers. I know sometimes my fingers get a bit dry, and so touch interfaces don't always work great for me. Sometimes I have to lick my finger. We also have the battery indicator and then the power. This has got the capabilities of going up to 500 milliwatt for Express LRS, so that's something to keep in mind. We have this quick set, which goes through just these basic, you have the channel view, which, channel view. I did change some of the mapping so that I could have my first aux switch be this one for my arming. So I did remap those, and that is something I want to get into here in just a minute. But we've got our power. We can set that here. We can go into the Express LRS, and we get all the typical Express LRS stuff in here. You can even enable the Bluetooth joystick, turn on the Wi-Fi. I did that to set a binding mode. We have additional features for Express LRS, VTX administrator, the Wi-Fi connectivity, the backpack, and we see the version that it's running is 3.63. Other devices would be it connects to other Express LRS items. RF output, internal, external. So if you had a bay in the back, you could go to external on that. Finder as just this QR code to search for your drone. You can also just go straight into binding from that quick set. Of course, I don't need to do that. Then we go over here, and then we have more settings. And this is where I wanted to go into the channels, because something that I was accustomed to was changing my channel mappings on radio. So I went into channel 5, and I was like, well, I just want to put it here, which obviously I've set it to. But if you set your source, it's already set to SD. Let's put it to SC. Let's go ahead and save. Now let's go back to SC. I am used to hitting the switch, and then it moves to that particular source. So if you do this on other radios with OpenTX and EdgeTX, it'll auto detect the toggle that you're hitting and move to that toggle. In this case, you have to read and then set it manually. It doesn't auto source when you activate something. So now we're back to where I like it. And of course, you've got weight, reverse, offset, And then you can also set a curve on that if you want to run some expo or a throttle curve or something of that nature. That's something I did want to bring out that's a little bit different. You can obviously change the language. There's stick calibration, which you do when you first get the radio. It has a screensaver, and I did enable that, but in the goggles, I never saw what it did. So, and my flights aren't real long. I don't fly for 15 minutes at a time, generally speaking. And when I had it plugged in for my sim testing, it didn't do anything. So there's probably some function that I need to trigger in order to activate the screensaver, because I'm curious, does it give us the googly eyes, or what does it give us? I suspect it does give us the googly eyes. You can factory reset everything. You can change the stick mode for left or right hand throttle, of course. It's got a throttle lock, which I suspect is for wings or something. I don't fly anything other than quads anymore, so it's been a long time since I did anything with outside of the drone or quadcopter space. There's an about section. If we flip over here, we can see that I'm running the version of 1.2. Like I said, they did have a version 1, of course. It does give us on the about our Express RS. And then if you wanted to update the firmware, you use the QR code to download and install the Oxbot app, and then you Bluetooth pair your phone to that, and you download an update. There's no update, of course, so I cannot show you that. You have a feedback section as well. So that's really kind of a quick once through. The interface, it works pretty well for me. I didn't really have any struggles with it. I didn't show you this. So you can change the screen brightness here as well. And then the volume. And then if you're running the Speedy Bee and you want to activate that, you can turn that on as well. So that's the radio itself in a nutshell. Like I said, it did come in 3 colors: classic white, midnight black, transparent. I've got the midnight black with the CNC gimbals. This is the pro version. It does come with the 18650 cells that are in the radio. I charged it once when I first got it, and I've been running it ever since. I did have it plugged in. I'm not much, maybe I don't sim a lot, FPV sim a lot, probably because I'm not very good at it. But I did test it to make sure that worked. So that would have been a time where it could have been charging. Otherwise, I haven't been charging this at all. And you can see my battery is still on high. And I had I had 11 attempts at a stick cam. And then there must have been a half a dozen flights before that where I was tinkering with the sticks. And I forgot to mention that. So the sticks, depending upon which version, you'll find their M2 or M3, the sticks, the threads, according to their website. And when they talk about being able to change the height, they're talking about unthreading the stick end. I'm going to have to get a tool. So as you can see here, I'm unscrewing the stick end. So technically speaking, you have some length that you can go up to where it's 25 millimeters. So it adjusts from 18 up to 25, which I suspect is about where my fingernail is. But you're going to need to put a nylon or a metal nut below it in order to keep it from moving around. So this would be about as high as you can go. I did use, for my testing purposes, a couple little standoffs, plastic nylon standoffs. I screwed them in, and then it was just too high for me, so I took them back out. That was part of my testing process. Now, to be a little bit hard on them about these CNC gimbals, I really felt that they needed to have the gimbal adjustments on the front. We've kind of gotten used to that, but these don't have that. Now, yes, it's easy enough to crack these rubber mats back and get to it. I did it myself. It's not that big a deal. It's not that hard. But it seems like that's one area where, especially if they make a next iteration of this radio, that's something I would strongly encourage them. On your pro version, have those adjustments. Some people might be more into racing, so they want to limit the travel. Other people just want the flexibility of being able to adjust their gimbals right from the front when they set up the radio for the first time. I, of course, have made my gimbals a little bit loose, a little bit sloppy. There are smaller gimbals. To give you an idea, this on the right is the TX16S. It's got the full-size gimbals compared to the R1 gimbals. They're quite a bit smaller, and hopefully that's very, very apparent. And this radio is substantially smaller than the TX16S. A little more of a size comparison. The classic old T-Lite from Jumper. I think this is V1, and then when Express LRS first came out, I've kept this around because I did use this radio for a good long time. It was my favorite radio of choice for quite a while. Another comparator, the Tango 2, another classic. Get to compare those sizes. And my daily driver, the Zorro from Radio Master. This is the Pyro Drone edition with the CNC gimbals. And you can see I use relatively long sticks, but these are set a little deeper than they are here. But the slant on the handle is about the same. Can we compare that somehow? Can I do a side-by-side with these? Potentially to kind of show you that slant. Fairly similar. So if you're familiar with the Zorro, you'll have an idea about not just the size of the R1, but the slant down from the gimbals. Because I think that's important, specifically if you're like me and you do the pinching or the hybrid pinching. So normally what my fingers sit here in this position, and then I fly kind of like this. You can see that in the stick cam for the most part, I hope. So I'm kind of holding the radio with my pinky and ring finger, and then the very bottom of my palm, and then I'm pinching the sticks. And of course, I can get to the full extents pretty easy without having to lean into things too much. But I did find that because of the stick height, something was just a touch off for me. I wasn't quite comfortable, so I would need to tinker with that a little bit more in order to find my sweet spot with the R1. And as you can tell with the Zorro, I've got a goggle battery down here because the battery life with the Zorro is just bad. So that is the R1 from Oxbot. It's a pretty solid radio. It's 500 milliwatts, so for those of you that like to do the long range, even though we've seen back when Wesley Vardy was doing long-range testing with Express LRS, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, veterans, that he got 33 miles on a wing or a plane of some sort on, was it 25 milliwatts? Or 33 kilometers, did I say miles? Kilometers on 25 milliwatts. So 500 in the right situation with someone who knows how to set everything up is going to get you further than you should go, probably. But if you just like that extra, sense of having that extra wattage blasting out of 1,000 milliwatts, this is not the radio from you. Of course, the antenna is internal. There's no external antenna. There's no option for an external antenna. There's no coax connection or SMA connection. Excuse me. It does have a lanyard here at the bottom, and if I can just hold this, it doesn't hold flat. So if that's important to you, do note that if you hang this from your lanyard, it's going to tip forward. That's just kind of the weight of the radios. I think all of them in this style do that. I like the interface. I like what they did with the interface. I like kind of the animations to the interface and the options that we do have. That's a flexibility I do think it's easy to enjoy. I don't think you have any options of designing your own, but check me on that. The Oxbot OS, which is what this is running, may one day, if it doesn't already, give us that flexibility. And that brings me to my finer point with Oxbot being somewhat of a new company. They come up in the last year, I think. So that would be your one concern. If you're someone that always wants an update to be at least available or being worked on for your radio, which I haven't updated hardly any of my radios. Even when there was supposedly a bug, I think there was a bug in Edge TX, I didn't bother. The bug didn't affect what I was doing, so I didn't bother. But that's something to know that, if you buy this radio and then Oxbot decides, that they're not going to update the OS because they don't see a need or what have you, and you always like to see future updates, there's just no guarantee of a future update. So that's the thing I want you to make sure that you are being aware of when it comes to buying the R1. But I think overall for their first radio, they did a pretty bang-up job. I guess the last question that's going to come up, which shouldn't be important, but it's always going to come up in these videos, is this going to be my new daily driver? And my answer is close. But no, I don't think so. Unless I can find the sweet spot with the stick heights. I've got two old Zorros I've been using day in and day out, and it is really hard to replace those. Matter of fact, I thought I was going to go to the GX12, but I found for inside flying that I just didn't fly as well with the GX12. There is a lot of finding what fits you in order to fly your best, whether it's the R1 or something else. Unfortunately, it just takes a lot of tries if you can get your hands on a lot of radios, or a lot of different purchases if you can. But if you like GamePad style because of your past gaming, maybe the R1 is for you. Again, the Pro version, which has the CNC gimbals and a few extras that come with it, come in at $126.99, $127. And then the standard version, which has the standard plastic gimbals, RDC50, I believe, is the gimbals on both sides. That is $97. And I will have a link down in the video description down below if you want to go to the webpage to check that out. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise about the Oxbot R1, please let me know down in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.